Thank you very much, Commissioner Nona Ricord. Obviously, she is a dear friend because I'd like to thank her for the very kind and well thought of introduction. It humbles me. I'm happy to be here in this hall this morning in the midst of all environmental allies. And we would like to thank the CHED for initiating this conference today. I was inquiring whether this was an annual conference we've had in past years. I think it's the first time, and I'm glad that the Philippines is hosting it, and that the CHED, along with the DNR, the UNDP, and agencies of government have initiated it, and I have requested Secretary Licuanan to make it, hopefully, an annual activity. In terms of the budget, the UNDP is there, the Philippine Senate is here, and we can all help each other. Because really, the Philippines, as you know, the Visayas Sea is the center of biodiversity. So congratulations, Secretary Licuanan. This is a feather in your cap in the first 6 months of your term that we have had. We have this international conference, and I hope that this will not be the last. And you can be assured of my support in the Senate for this conference and many other initiatives of the CHED. Congratulations. She has been an ally because I was a frequent guest speaker in Miriam College when she was the president. So thank you for that. Nona, again, thank you for your kind introduction. Nona is a dear friend. We have our causes in women's causes, and even in Baybay Leyte, we see each other in state universities in trying to bring forth our cause for environment and rural women as well. Commissioner Sanyo, I am glad that we have young people, young knowledgeable experts in the commission. I was briefly telling Chair Licuanan, Secretary Licuanan, about the difficulty of having had this National Commission on Climate Change. It was an uphill battle in 2007. I don't have enough time to tell you how it started. It was just a dream. Literally a dream. I dreamt one day that we will have the National Commission on Climate Change. Then I drafted the law. It was not a refiled bill. It was not a copied law from another country. It was born out of a dream. It's not figuratively speaking, literally speaking, and my staff know the whole story. And so this dream has come true 4 years later, and I'm happy that we have at the helm young experts like Sev Sanyo. Of course, the man behind the Coral Triangle and many more, the head of the World Wildlife Fund, whom I'm always, whenever I see him, say I always want to sit down with him because I'm sure I can learn a lot from this man who is an expert in the environment and the biodiversity. Lori Tan, we're happy to have you here today. And Mr. Rodrigo Fuentes of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity in Los Baños, another man I'd like to meet and talk to because this is my passion, and I am very close to those in UP Los Baños, especially the 6 IPCCs, Filipino scientists who helped Vice President Al Gore, who are mostly based at the UP Los Baños. I'm certain that you work with Dr. Rodel Lasco, Dean Rex Cruz, and Dean Vicky Espaldon, among many other brilliant Filipinos who helped the country and put the environment in the forefront. Secretary Alcala, I'm sorry to hear that you are a victim of climate change. I hope that with some salabat you will feel better later. Mr. Renaud Mayor, thank you for helping the Philippines, and I hope that the UNDP would find and fund more projects on biodiversity. And I know that the UNDP, I think, in the post-needs assessment along with the World Bank after Ondoy and Pepeng in 2009 came up with a study that we would need, is it accurate, $2 to $4 billion for reconstruction after Ondoy and Pepeng. I don't think that $2 to $4 billion has been allocated at all, or I don't know if it will ever be allocated. That's how difficult it is to build after reconstruction. It's therefore with great pleasure that I take part in this event, the International Conference on Biodiversity and Climate Change, where we see a synergistic partnership among various sectors of society at work. I'm aware of the enormous efforts made by everyone, especially by the CHED, the DNR, of course, Undersecretary Heroche is here to represent Secretary Paje. According to his best friend in the table, Lori Tan, Undersecretary Heroche is a very good negotiator who has the Philippines at heart. That came, he was whispering to me while you were speaking. A few decades back, man and nature used to be the best of friends. We all know that. We used to savor the goodness that nature brings, the right warmth of sunshine that energizes our mornings, the occasional rain showers that bring excitement during summer days, the fresh air and clean water that invigorate our bodies, the green fields that allow us to de-stress and to daydream, the fireflies that light the rich meadows during the night, the butterflies that fly from flower to flower to sip its rich nectar. These are just few of nature's wonders. And I speak from the heart because I grew up in a rural area then, 50 years ago, in Malabon, which was a rural town of Rizal, where I actually saw butterflies and fireflies and all these things I mentioned this morning. These are just few of nature's wonders. Mother Nature took care of us because we also took care of her. Today, however, our environment has started turning into a foe that connives with natural hazards to reciprocate the kind of treatment that we give it. Pollution, illegal and excessive mining, illegal logging, overfishing, as mentioned by Seb, and deforestation, among many other abuses, have contributed to the degradation of our environment. These dangers that we bring upon nature ultimately affect us too. When disasters strike, our ailing environment will have no power to defend itself and will even intensify the risks in our communities. The Philippines is blessed with rich biodiversity, with its high concentration of species per unit area compared to its neighboring marine biodiversity hotspots. Our country has been hailed as the world's center of marine biodiversity, the epicenter of biodiversity and evolution. In fact, the Philippines is one of the 18 mega biodiversity countries in the world. However, while we boast of high levels of life forms in our country, the unfortunate reality is that we are also one of the world's top biodiversity hotspots, with a large number of species that are endangered or threatened with extinction. The mindset of an extractive and consumptive economics intends to destroy what took thousands of years to form. The rate of extraction and consumption is way, way faster than the rate at which the earth can replenish her resources. This is consistent with the Millennium Ecosystems Assessment, which revealed that humans have altered ecosystems more rapidly and extensively in the past 50 years than in any other period in our history. This is the unreported truth in our growth stories. For every percentage rise in our economic activity aimed at meeting our growing demands, hectares of wondrous and thriving biodiversity are extracted from our natural environment. It is time for us to redefine and rethink the kind of development we have been having. The increasing loss of biodiversity, particularly in Asia, is being attributed to development activities and land degradation, especially overgrazing and deforestation, as well as pollution, overfishing, hunting, infrastructure development, species invasion, land use change, and the overuse of fresh water. Further endangering the precarious situation of our country's biodiversity is a challenge that is climate change. Among the projected impacts of climate change is a loss of thousands of species as well as changes in our natural ecosystems. The rise in average global temperatures will render many species unable to adapt quickly enough to these new conditions or to move to regions more suitable for their survival. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicts that a 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius rise in temperature in a span of 50 or 100 years, 30% of species would be at risk of extinction. These conditions present to us a rare scenario. The Philippines as both a top hotspot for biodiversity and a top hotspot for climate change vulnerability. As the ill effects of global warming, increased precipitation, and extreme weather events adversely affect the high concentration of species found endemically in our country, we as humans are dependent on the very plants and animals that make up our natural ecosystems for livelihood and sustenance are directly affected as well. We cannot sit idly as our fragile ecosystems are destroyed by unsustainable development practices and climate change. We must begin with addressing a more imminent issue, that of existing local and regional non-climate stresses our natural ecosystems are already facing. These stresses have more potential to be mitigated and managed more readily than climate change. The 2009 Global Assessment Report of the United Nations found that in addition to the general decline of ecosystem services, we are also creating trade-offs between ecosystem services. Mangroves have been destroyed to create shrimp ponds, thereby increasing storm surge hazards. Wetlands have been drained, thereby increasing flood hazards, and deforestation has increased landslide hazards. The decline of our ecosystems has been found as one of the underlying drivers of disaster risks and poverty in the context of climate change. Therefore, protecting ecosystems, which involves rehabilitating our forests, cleaning our rivers, and stopping pollution, among other actions, need to be done as soon as now. At the level of legislation, several proposed measures aimed at strengthening climate adaptation, mechanisms, and conserving biodiversity are pending in the Senate. I have filed Senate Bill 1353 of the Sustainable Forest Management Act, which mandates the development and adoption of a sustainable forest management strategy based on national allocation of forest land uses and the promotion of land use practices that increase productivity and conserve soil, water, and other forest land resources, as well as the protection of existing forest resources and conservation of biodiversity, rehabilitation, or development of denuded areas to expand the forest resource base and to promote food production activities. We've also filed Senate Bill 1370, or the Integrated Coastal Resource Management Act, which seeks to put in place a comprehensive framework that will promote the sustainable development of the coastal and marine environmental resources. Meanwhile, Senate Bill 1369 of the National Land Use Act seeks to institutionalize a national land use policy to ensure a rational, holistic, and just allocation, utilization, management, and development of a country's land resources. My first term in the Senate was 1998. One of the first bills I filed was a national land use policy. Fast forward 2011, my second term. It's still pending in the Senate. It would really take political will from our government to be able to pass this very important law. The Committee on Climate Change, which I chair, is also deliberating amendments to the Climate Change Act of 2009 to support local governments in undertaking climate adaptation programs and projects, especially in areas of water resources management, land management, agriculture and fisheries, fragile ecosystems, and integrated coastal zone management. We recognize a need to establish the People's Survival Fund. With the expertise of everyone in this hall today, those from government agencies, NGOs, and those experts from other countries in Asia and in Europe who are here today, I encourage everyone to give your insights to further enhance all our measures and our activities for the next few days. The ground level work and the parallel environmental initiatives at the Senate may not get the screaming headlines. If this were a weapon hearing, you would see all the media and this would be live on ANC. Well, we have a few cameras here, but I hope that our noise would reverberate in the whole Philippines. But however they represent, what we're doing represents big, determined steps for Filipinos and the rich biodiversity we thrive in. I see before me an assembly of promising individuals, a congregation of people, different countries, from government, from non-government institutions, higher educational institutions, the academia and the research community, civil society and private sector. We're all here to engage and exchange knowledge and devise strategies. We must use this opportunity to not just gain knowledge from each other, but to transform that knowledge into concrete action, whether into national policy or local action. The minutes and the hours of the global environmental clock are ticking to sunset. Let us all work together and forge a network of cooperation to reverse this. I thank all of you for your patience. Thank you for your interest. I am glad to be in the presence of environmental warriors, and let it be said that during our watch, with the gift of wisdom, time, influence, and power within our spheres, we did something to help improve our Earth. Thank you. Isang lunti ang umaga sa akin.